And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another scene for London Ascending. We find Leanne after leaving the Elysium, making her way over to a very famous restaurant in this town. And as she approaches it, she'll look for the way in, the proper way in.
She will find herself staring at a housing block, and it in no way looks like a restaurant. However, she knows the exact address, and as she approaches the door, she can immediately see three things. She can see a door, obviously, but it looks a very heavy door. She can see a padlock and two cameras aimed at the street and at the front of the door.
Okay. She will knock on the door and will step in straight view of the camera.
As she steps in straight view of the camera, she can actually hear the soft whizzing of the camera, and then, um, without her saying anything, just ringing the bell, she can hear a soft hissing as the doors open. One of the side panels, which looks like a regular panel next to the door, actually hinges open as well as the door itself, and they hinge towards the inside. And as they open, the front entrance of the restaurant is revealed. To her left, she can see that that's the place where she can hang her coat. And on the right, there is just a panel, some sort of security panel, you assume. There is, however, someone else in this room, for as the door opens next to the place where she can put her jacket is a well-dressed man with a very meticulous taste, dressed in a teal-colored suit with small green stripes in squared formation. And he smiles at her, and she recognizes the man, Mr. Peck.
She steps forward into the restaurant, um, gives a nod with her head. Mr. Peck, it is an honor to be in your establishment.
Well, thank you very much. I hope to see you here sooner, but I'm a busy man. Please, please come in. Let us continue. And he turns towards another set of doors, which open less loudly. And as the door behind Diane closes in with the same hissing motion, she can clearly see that and hear that the door is very securely locked tight. It's also a very thick and heavy door.
She'll follow Mr. Peck.
Inside the room, she can see that um, most tables are on the side, and there's one table exactly in the middle, which is dressed as pristine and perfect as possible, with pristine white china, with on every side at least four pieces of cutlery, four glasses, different shapes and sizes, all ready to be used in a private dinner. Also, in the middle of the table is a green rose.
She she'll walk up to the table. She'll look at it. You've outdone yourself.
No, this is what I regularly do. But thank you for the compliment nonetheless. It's appreciated. I'm vain like that. And he smiles and says, but yes, our appointment is overdue. I am a
Mm.
very bad host, I should say. Could I offer you something to drink?
She will glance over at the clock and she'll give a smile. I presume it's time for that. Yes, it's the right hour.
Mr. Peck will then simply smile and give almost a curtsy as she then walks over to the kitchen to prepare the drinks.
Diane will sit down.
As Diane sits down, she can clearly see that he's walking into an open kitchen. She can actually see Mr. Peck as he is in the kitchen preparing their drinks. And as he puts the liquid into her glass, he also fills his own glass with wine and then comes back, hands her glass, and places his glass on the table, and then crosses his legs.
And she'll take hold of the glass and kind of swirl the liquids around in the glass. So, how do you find London nowadays, Mr. Peck?
Well, to be honest, recently there have been many new visitors in London, and has given it some extra spice. Also, big changes in the Upper Legion, as we now have a new Malkavian Primogen. The old one must have really suffered the loss of his previous master.
Master, even.
You didn't know that the current Primogen was actually the childer of the kindred that currently took his life by watching the sunset.
And she thoughtfully will take a sip from the glass. And takes a moment to let the liquids kind of roll over her tongue and then slowly swallows them. I was not aware. Then again, I do not believe that a sire should be someone's master as well. I prefer to think that I've raised my child as, well, at least strong enough to be able to hold an own opinion.
Oh yes, but the Malkavian master did have his own opinion. However, as you know, being attached by one's sire can be quite a blow if lost. Now I understand that you have not lost your sire, but I can tell you, not from personal experience, but from the many people I've talked to over the years, many take it in different ways. It's like, for some, it's a lost father or mother that is currently empty, leaving an empty spot in their lives. And for others, well, it's less value, but still an overseeing part of their history that they used to have is now snuffed out of existence. Once I spoke to a man that said, when you live as long as we do, we forget our past was just one of a child. When I remember that I was once a child from my sire, if she would depart, then the first part of me being raised as a child is forgotten by anyone else but me. Because there weren't many others who raised me in that specific way. Therefore, if she experiences final death, that part of my history meets final death. And the only one who remembers it and can reminisce upon it will be me. So, yes, many people take it in different ways. Obviously, not everyone has the same relationship with their sire. I believe you are a very lucky one, being from your bloodline. As I do believe that Gangrel, from what I remember, can be quite hasty in their departure.
We tend to stick in the now. I must say that I find that part of being what I am quite agreeable. I prefer to not look back too much. Looking back comes usually with regrets. And while I look back, I prefer to think of it as a journey that makes me what I am now.
Yes, I guess you're right. But I do believe that the past, even though looking back, is something that should not be regretted, but should be celebrated as a part of a set of stepping stones that brings you where you are right now. But like I said, I do understand that people will meet their history with their own set of values.
And here we went, dwelling from what is now to the past.
Right, that I find myself of late dwelling on the past more than on the future. I guess because there is so much past to dwell towards. However, yes, I did invite you to talk about the future of London, our roles in it, and the blessings that it gives.
May I remind you that no matter how long the past is, the future is always inevitable and infinite.
Well, yes and no. Although you're right that things will continue in a certain direction, and the time it may take will be more than what we are used to. I can assure you that nothing is really sure.
This is true. Nothing is yet set in stone. That is, again, a thing of the past.
Well, you can set plans in motion, talk and think about futures, but as the famous warlord Sun Tzu once said, a better plan is only as effective until it meets its first enemy. Then things will become more chaotic.
Yes, well, I'll have to agree to that. A plan is all fun and games, but plans can only bring so much. They can bring you an edge, but they can't win a war for you.
Well, in this we must disagree. I believe that a good plan, a good preparation, could win a war before it begins.
Hmm. I understand where you're coming from, but I'd say a good preparation is half the battle.
Oh, good preparation is only half that after all. The fight still has to be fought, and we will be
Exactly.
meeting our enemies in that fight. But, like at Stirling, I believe, preparing of your battleground could destroy any well-organized army into a raving heap of metal and arrows and mud and dirt. Ah well, less fun.
So, you came here to discuss the future
Oh yes.
or the present?
Well, the present is part of the future. It becomes a time-consuming issue when we want to discuss time, especially for us. But yes, the future, yes, we find ourselves in a growing court with new, or at least more active participants than the last few years. Partially, I blame the fact that our queen has found it within herself to become a little bit more demanding, not only of her child, but of the court itself. Therefore, leaving us as participants, or yes, to assist her in the way she runs London.
Well, you must be in a fortunate position then, being primogen of her clan.
It's always a dual. Um, the fact that I'm the primogen does present me with the benefits of calling myself within the Queen's favorites. However, every decision I make within my clan is under her watchful eye.
Once you hold a title, people will expect things of you.
Oh
The
yes, of
expectations
course.
surrounding you as a primogen must be rather high.
Well, yeah, I'd like to put my standards as high as they come, and at the same time take my time to make sure that I make the right decision.
Who doesn't from time to time? I have the same, well, when a job needs to be done, a job needs to be done well.
That's correct. However, who decides what is well?
The one who hands out the job, I'd say.
Really? It's always a tricky discussion. Again, when you look at theatre, the one that hands up the jobs is not the one that is judging its performance. Like in a kitchen, the one that is telling people to start cooking is the one who is eventually judging the food.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not only under the scrutiny of her watchful eye, but also under the scrutiny of every single member in the court.
Yes.
This is where I find your name rising more and more amongst those voices.
I see. She takes another sip. Well, say a bigger one than before. And she'll, her gray eyes kind of rest on Mr. Peck, waiting for him to continue.
Yeah, Mr. Peck indeed waits for a moment. You can see him think about what he's going to say. Then says, the question then still remains. How does the chef want his food to be presented? At this moment, I wonder if you're not presenting yourself a bit too rough around the edges for some of our dinner guests within the court.
Sometimes you need to present a certain flavor to test out your audience and your public.
Mr. Peck nods his head. He likes the reference, and he seems to think about that and says, well, just remember that being fired from your kitchen, if you experiment too much, could result in a very final discharge.
So far, although my behavior has been noticed, it has not yet come to a point where I truly consider myself to be at tremendous risk. I might be wrong in that, of course. I cannot look into, well, the head of the Queen, I'd say.
Well, I can, but let's just say that I won't. So
I understand.
it leaves me only to interpret what I hear and see. And at this moment, there seems to be a adversarial moment between Mr. Lorne and yourself and our Seneschal Garnet, who seem to have a very strong opinion of you, and I assume vice versa. Now, Mr. Garnet has been one of the most hands-on seneschals I've ever seen, which shows that he is very eager and willing to present, and maybe got carried away at some point, merely a passion that he has. However, Mr. Nygaard, our keeper, seems to be of a very strong, emotional kind to be very, very willing to butt heads with anyone who does not agree with his status, who does not agree with his modus operandi. Simply, he seems to be on the war path, trying to look for a target. And I'm simply saying that I wouldn't like to see you become that target, because I hate to intervene.
Well, my apologies for that, Mr. Peck. I will try to be a little bit more on my best behavior when it comes to Mr. Nygaard, or the keeper, as he wants me to call him, constantly.
Splendid. I consider you continue with this constantly. If people want to have titles so much, they should know what it feels like constantly. Don't you agree?
He seems to be confused a little bit about what he says, as he says that he wants to be addressed as keeper. When I do so, he threatens to with the Queen.
He threatens with the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he now the wielder of Queen? Very dangerous accusation, as well as a very dangerous threat if he can wield the Queen in a way that he can threaten with it. I
I would
wonder if I
not
should.
make any accusation to the Queen.
If you would want my personal opinion on this,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you write the Queen a letter explaining why you have an opinion in the way you have an opinion? And then whenever Mr. Nygaard steps up and pours his opinion into her ear, your letter might just be there to soak up most of the damage.
Mr. Peck, as you can presume, I don't play the game of politics that well. I have kept away from them for a long while. Writing her might not be a bad idea at all. In fact, if you seem to think that's the best course of action, you with all your experience, who am I to counter that? However, a letter, permanent evidence that he, as I said, I am not quite fond of this game. I know most of our people live for it, but I've always experienced the lust to hunt in quite a different way. I will think about your words, though. A letter it may be an idea, but
A letter strengthens one of your personal merits, I should say. Your straightforwardness and sometimes bluntness, but also in this your honesty is put into a letter evidence of your not wavering opinion about subjects that others might just crawl back from. I've heard people say one thing in public and a second thing in private. If you in private talk to the Queen about your opinion, and then when you meet her, maybe in public or maybe with other esteemed court members around, and you keep to that opinion, I think the Queen would consider that to be a plus. I think she would like the fact that you are not one to back down from having an opinion, although sometimes it might be a little bit too rough, like I said.
I think that is something that I can only find out one way.
Well, it's only my suggestion. After all, you are your own kind, and you do have to do what you do. But I'm happy to assist you in this frightful game of politics, where most things are not what they appear to be.
Yes. It does require a sharp mind to be in this city. With that, she drains the entire glass in one go. And she puts it on the table.
Mr. Pack would sip from his own drink and then simply says, so to continue, my idea about the future is that at this moment people are speculating about a new sheriff, feeling that the old Gangrel sheriff either could use a break or in some foul tongues could even be considered no longer truly Camarilla because his clan, your clan, stepped away. Therefore, people are looking to replace him either with or without his full consent. Your name has come up. Sorry?
I merely wanted to state that I do believe that it would be better to have it with his consent, and that his consent would be given rather freely to anyone who, in his mind, earns the position.
Right, well, this is where the trouble lies. Eventually, the sheriff is appointed by the Queen. Therefore, she might take into consideration his opinion on the matter, but eventually people could trade boons and other favors to the Queen in order to make sure that she leans favorable in one way or the other.
And
So
this
my
is why I
question
did.
is, since your name is mentioned, do you have any desire to fill a courtly position such as sheriff?
My first and foremost thought would be no, I do not. However, I look at this city and all the strings that are being pushed and pulled into what direction. And while I do not know the other hounds very well, nor have I seen others who are very martially inclined, I I would take the position if I have the feeling that there's no one else who would step up to do a proper job.
And who
I
would have your vote from one of the other clans who you consider to be proper if
I said
that person would step up to the plate, obviously?
I have not yet I have not yet seen anyone. I've heard a lot of your clanmate, Lady Camilla. However, I haven't seen much yet. Though I'm sure same can be said for me.
Right.
She has a long history in this town, so I presume that she would be the chosen one.
Well, chosen one, after all, the Queen has to make a decision between the balance of having alliances and the balance of keeping power where you feel it's most strongly put. I do believe, to give you a heads up, that if the position would become um, available, or at least up for grabs, to say it harshly, that Camilla would be eager to fill the shoes of sheriff. What I
I've
can
heard
tell
she's
about
eager
her
to
is
fill
that
many.
she is. Sorry?
I've heard about her that she's eager to fill many shoes.
I beg your pardon. I don't understand what you're saying.
I thought I'd heard that she also went or tried to be the next seneschal.
I believe that was loyalty to our queen speaking more than actual desire to
Hmm.
be seneschal, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I do believe that if there's a place for her in court within a position, then sheriff could be it. However, she does present herself in a rather ill way sometimes, simply because she is so straight arrowed, I should say.
I was gonna say highborn, but that might have
Well,
been.
highborn could be in so many things. I do not consider myself straight arrowed, but I was highborn. After all, some of us still firmly believe in the difference between clans, high clan, low clan, independent, not dependent,
Mm.
and Ravnos as the bottom.
I think some of the people in court have found a new bottom, and it's named Gangrel.
Uh,
Many times I have heard that we should not be in the Camarilla. It's almost as if they would like to see us leave. The three of us have always stood behind the Camarilla. I've always been willing to fight and lay our lives in the line for the traditions. To keep hearing time and time again that we are not part of the unique group that is the Camarilla at some point will turn out to be true. One can only listen to that being said for so long.
put this also in your letter towards the Queen, and you might move her to even giving you or one of your clanmates a position of primogen. After all, there are so many gangrel already here.
I doubt I would be an appropriate primogen for our clan. It is best to be a voice of reason, where I have now shown myself to be a voice of power.
Then your sire, perhaps?
I do not wish to speak of the ambitions of my sire. After all, they are his own.
True. But if he can strengthen the position and silence the voices that cry out that you are no longer part, with just one swift move of an acceptance of position within the court, the Queen, representing his bloodline, could be something that just merely should be implemented in his future ambitions.
I can always bring it to his attention.
I suggest you do. Well, I do believe that I'll have to prepare dinner. I expect a guest. So, I have to request that you find yourself on your merry way.
It was a pleasure, Mr. Peck.
As always. And he rises up
Thank
from
you.
his table and he will nod at her in a very respectful way and walk towards with her towards the exit or the front door.
And I think that we can leave the scene with Diane leaving the restaurant, looking up as she sees a falcon kind of circle above her, and then makes her way back to her residence. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watcher, for watching. And good night.